So, we're creating a book cover in Affinity Photo on iPad. Make it all your own. This is a print and ebook cover. Now this is based on the Affinity Photo Workbook for the desktop example. Nobody does one for the iPad. iPad seems to have been left out. So I'm doing the same exercise on the iPad to show you where to find all the moving parts. This is quite a long exercise, so settle back and get ready to go. The book cover project details are as follows. This cover is based on a set print size, but of course books come in many sizes. If yours is different, you'll have to adjust the sizes used to suit your book, and the example files used in this video can be found on my website or on the Affinity Workbook website. If you have the workbook, you'll be familiar with it. Now, part 1 is document setup. Set up the document for professional printing of a paperback cover, front cover size 5.25 by 8 inches. It's width and height. Select File and New. Now the document type of print, press ready. It's print press ready that you select. The colour type is CMYK. The units are inches, and the orientation, although I say there portrait, the actual orientation is landscape. It's only the individual cover itself that's portrait, because you've got a front, a spine and a back. But wait, the page dimensions are not 5.25 by 8, so don't press create just yet. The page height includes the margin settings for top and bottom. That's 2 times 0.12 inches, and the page width is also greater to take in the front and back cover plus left margin and right margin settings of 2 times 0.12 inches. In addition, you need to add the 0.77 inches to account for the spine width. That's one measurement you will need to change to suit your book's page numbers, covered in other videos. So work out your page numbers and set your spine accordingly. Then you'll know what width your book has to be. The margins here act as non-printing bleed guides, allowing your images to run over the margins to allow your printer to trim the covers. So the cover that you want to keep doesn't go right to the edges. Anything past the margins can be cut off, because the margins in this case are the bleed, because the bleed lines are not available in Affinity Photo. So what does this look like? Here I've created a preset of the right dimensions and named it Custom Book. And you can see it's 11.51 by 8.24 in height. It's landscape, it's CMYK, and it's in inches. And the preset's been named Custom Book. That way you can come back to it any time you like. You could put a size in there if you've got different size books. Custom Book, 8 inches by 5.25. Like that. Now set up the guides. We've got 4 vertical guides there, 0.12, then another one at 5.37, 6.14, that's your spine, and then the right bleed guide, 11.39. You've got 2 horizontal guides, one at 0.12 and one at 8.12. The iPad version does not have the option to include margins in the document at creation. The margins here are the bleed. Now part 2, fonts and images. Images are readily available from unsplash.com and fonts from fontsquirrel.com. The font I'm using here in this cover is Antonio, freely available from FontSquirrel. So if you want to use that one, download it and install it now. Installing your fonts on the iPad you may be familiar with. If you're not, I've got another video on that somewhere else, and there are lots of little tutorials on the internet showing you how to install fonts on your iPad. Don't install them just into the application, install them into the iPad system. Then they're available to anything you use. Now the background. Open the forest image supplied on the website and copy and paste it into your project. Adjust the size. Now you can adjust the size instead of scrolling out or scanning out and then reducing it with your fingers. Just type in the size in your dimensions of your Transform Studio. This places it onto the background layer. If you place it as an image, it creates a new layer, which you may prefer or may not. In this case, it places it directly on the background that the document's set up. Resize the image to just outside your bleed guides, the margin. Okay, so you don't have it trimmed inside. That outside edge, that tiny little bit, can be trimmed off. Now we're going to put in a linear gradient. Now to add a linear gradient to make the sky appear darker. On the Layers panel, add a pixel layer. Or add a new fill layer so you can re-edit the gradient if necessary. Now I'd strongly advise you to add a new fill layer, not just a new pixel layer, but a new fill layer, because you might want to come back and re-edit this sky and make it darker. Select the Fill or Gradient tool and drag a gradient down from centre top to centre bottom of the page. Click the gradient circular nodes, that's the top node and the bottom node. Set the lower one to black and the top one to 0% opacity. Don't set it to no colour, that's not what you want. That will change the whole look of the thing. You want it to be white but 0 opacity. Well, I guess the top one doesn't matter what colour it is, but 0 opacity, and I've got it white there in case you get confused with something else. Don't forget, it's a linear gradient. Set the midpoint marker, which will be at 50%. Now set it to about 70%. Set the layer panel blend mode to darken. Now setting it at 70% shifts the focus, shifts the centre of the darkening edge towards the bottom. You can change that if you like. You can actually drag it towards the top. 70% rather than 50%. A new fill layer added and the original is switched off. Now you can see I put a normal pixel layer in there and put the gradient on it, but I've turned it off. I just wanted to show you the two versions. The one that's in there is a fill layer, and in this image I've already got the man in there, but we'll get to him. Now the person. First, cut out the person from the person image. You can see the dotted crawling ants surrounding the man. Do that in a separate image, not of course in the book project. Just go back with your back arrow, your home arrow up the top left hand corner. Load the man image in and edit him as you need. Copy the man and create a new image from the clipboard. This gives you a transparent background image. I've left this one a little indistinct around the edges. You can see that because I don't want him too sharp on the other image. Now I selected him in the original image. I selected him, had the crawling ants around him, copied that, go back to the front of the project, create a new document from the clipboard, and that's what you end up with. You end up with man image and a transparent background. Place the image as a new layer, naming it person. You can see I've placed it this time. Centre the person in the right hand panel. Now it'll be quite large when you place it, but you know how to adjust that down now. And you can see the size, the image size of the man. You can see it's selected there, and you can see its dimensions in the panel there, 1.4 inches by 3.3 inches. In the FX panel, choose outer glow and set white as the colour. We're still on the man. Set the position and size of the man as shown. So far, the next step is to add some fog. You can use the white brush for this or a fog brush. These are widely available. So instead of just painting white, you can actually paint a fog. Very useful brushes. Let's add some fog to our scene. It does look foggy at the moment, but we're going to add some more. There we go. Add a pixel layer. Select the paintbrush tool and use white or a fog brush. Now if you use white, use very low intensity, very low fill, very low opacity, and use multiple strokes, not just one stroke. The settings are as shown, and I say there use multiple brush strokes, not just one continuous brushing. Make sure the lower part of the person is covered by fog, and you can see what I've got there. Now we're setting the mood. Let's cool down the scene to create the right mood. We need to think frosty evening or maybe a cold dawn. Add a pixel layer, select the colour panel and set a blue tone with CMYK as 702700. Then flood fill the layer and set blend mode to colour. And that'll give you that blue tone you've got there, the blue mood. Now we add a flashlight beam. Add a pixel layer. This isn't really necessary, but it helps. You can remove it later. The pixel layer stops it from, when you put the pen down, it can drag other things around that are on the screen. I like to put that pixel layer between what I'm working on and the rest of the image. So select the pen tool and draw the shape of a light cone. Remember you're in pen tool here, and fill with white. Duplicate this layer and hide the original. You can see in the panel there. Now apply a Gaussian blur of 20% to the beam. Add a very small white ellipse to the man's hand to imply the torch itself, and you can see the little circle there. Looks like he's just holding a torch down. Make the underlying layer visible and using the erase brush, paint over the edges with a lower opacity. So the beam is, you've got two beams there now, one slightly offset. You can see in the right hand side there in the layer panel, I've actually got it turned off. But what I'm saying is turn it on now and do that little bit of work with it. Rotate that layer by about 4 degrees to give it a slight offset for added realism. Select both flashlight layers and group them. With the group selected, add a mask layer by tapping on the plus sign. That's up the top near the rubbish bin, the little plus sign, and select a mask layer. Using the erase brush tool, paint on the selected mask layer to mask out the lower area of the beam so it appears to fade out. Lastly, apply a Gaussian blur of about 6 pixels to the actual torch. Now that's the end of part 2. Part 3 is adding the text. Text in your project can take 2 forms, the artistic text or the frame text. This makes the 2 types great for use in titling and secondly, paragraph body text. So let's start with the title, Search the Woods. And you can see I've got there. Choose the artistic text tool and type Search the Woods on the front page. Don't worry about aligning it too much at the moment. We'll do that later. Add a line break after the word search. The font is Antonio Bold, 80 point, and it's centered. Colour is CMYK 08978 And you can see it all on the screen there, along the bottom edge of the iPad display. Now, the leading override is 80 point. You set that in the character panel. From the character studio, set your leading override to 80 point. That spreads the text out a little bit, makes it easier to read. Now we're going to add a texture behind the font. Select Place and open the Texture JPG and drag the cursor over the title text so that it sort of sits halfway in the title text, and the JPEG image will sit slightly offset there, you can see, and it becomes part of that layer. On the Layers panel, drag this texture layer halfway down on the title layer and set its blend mode to multiply. That way it doesn't block out your entire screen, but just appears behind the words, "Search the Woods." With the title layer selected, tap FX and enable Inner Shadow radius of 3 pixels and Outer Glow radius of 100 pixels and intensity 60%. And you can see those settings I've got there. Set colour to white, then adjust the CMYK colour to 100, 81, 51 and 69. For the author, choose Artistic Text and enter the author name, Justin B. Laker. In this case, the font is Antonio, 34 point, bold and white. Now, the back cover text. Put in a heading, it's late November. This is Antonio font, 22 point, bold and white, and you can see it there. Now we add the book summary. Use the frame text tool. Now this time it's Antonio, 12 point, regular, it's white and it's justified left. Now the spine text, choose the Artistic Text tool, insert the title of the book and author name using the same colours as the front cover text. Set the text to 30 point and rotate the text 90 degrees. Don't try and do it by hand. Use the rotation button on the right hand side there. It's just about level with the torch beam. And if you look at it, the rotation, and set that to 90 degrees. That way you'll get an absolutely accurate rotation. If you try and do it with the handle of the border around the text, it won't place properly. Now, aligning your text. Up to now, all your text may not be perfectly centred. We can fix this by using snapping and the temporary use of a drawn rectangle. So turn on snapping if you haven't got it. You might have to go back to the front menu to do that. Draw a rectangle with no fill or stroke from the guide to margin, snapping to each. So it's in perfect position there. You can see it highlight. When you reposition your text, that is your title text, you'll find a green vertical line indicating that the text is aligned with the centre. Now, exporting. Exporting for print is easy. Select Export from the Document menu, select PDF and the preset PDF X1A 2003 and tap Export. Save it where you like. Now, exporting for ebook cover is slightly different, and it's very different to the one on the desktop. A nice feature of Affinity Photo is the ability to create ebook covers directly from within the app by simply exporting just the front cover as a slice. So switch to the export persona, and with the slice tool, drag a rectangular slice on the front cover that fits perfectly within the guideline and page margin. Turn off snapping to help at this stage if you find it difficult to get it right, because it's somewhat smaller on the iPad, obviously, and snapping may not be what you want. It'll try and snap to the outside edge. On the Slices panel, choose an export preset of single JPEG high quality. On Export Options, change the pixel format to RGB. Now you'll have to do that from the Document tool menu at the top. The slice size is 1574 pixels by 2403.5 pixels. Convert it to RGB via the convert document command. This converts the slice, not the entire document, if you get that right. You can see I've got an example there of what it is. To export 3 different size versions of your cover slice, suitable for different devices, select the 3 size options and the convert to RGB option, and away they'll go. And you can see I've got 3 different slices there, slice 1, slice 2 and slice 3. They're 3 different sizes. The sizes are suitable for most devices. Now that's this exercise on the iPad complete. I hope you've learned enough to go right ahead and create your very own fantastic book cover. If you haven't got this right the first time round, just keep working at it till you get the bits right, particularly the slice for getting the ebook cover. That can be quite an interesting exercise, shall we put it, on the iPad. But with the iPad, that means that you can be anywhere and work up a book cover. The iPad version of the export persona does not behave like the desktop version at all, so be careful with it. Duplicate your master document and experiment. And this is the exported ebook cover slice. I think that's all for now. Thanks for watching this fun little exercise. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it when you do.